Sláinte and welcome to the Shebeen. Not coming from a Shebeen, coming from somewhere a little bit warmer tonight. How's it going, everybody? Sunday evening. Hope you got something Irish in your glass. Sláinte, you're all very welcome to this week's Irish Whiskey Show, the Shebeen. Let us know where you're joining us from. What are you sipping on? I'm sipping on our whiskey of the week, which I'll tell you more about in a second. There's Bob in the comments. How are you, Bob? Looking forward to the Cliffs of Moher tasting tomorrow. And Johnny McNally, never thought I'd look forward to a Monday more. Yeah, we're going to talk about the Cliffs of Moher. There's the whiskies up there. We're going to talk about the tasting tomorrow night. We're going to talk about that shortly, but you're all welcome. Let us know what you're drinking. I've got the fire lighting beside me. It's not a green screen. We'll be feeding that continuously through the night as the blocks of wood and the coal burn down, but a little bit of a different location tonight. Redbreast 12 for Tom. Good stuff. There's John joining us. How are you, John? Dave, Coffee and Five Farms. Very good. Depends where you're joining us from the world, what you might be able to participate in late at night here in Ireland. Back in Ireland after a great week in Ohio, we'll be talking about all of the great silent distillery fundraising that was done by so many people over the past week in Ohio later on. We're going to share with you tonight the Irish whiskey releases that have cropped up over the past week. We'll talk about our Irish whiskey of the week, Irish whiskey distillery of the week. We're going to talk about a couple of new Irish distilleries to keep an eye on. There's other news to share as well that's happening in the world of Irish whiskey, not just releases, but some developments which we'll talk about as well. And as always, I don't ask very much of you, just a like and a subscribe. If you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel here, the Stories and Sips channel, would love if you subscribe to it. And if you click like below, it helps others see our videos. The goal of the Shebeen is very simple. It's to bring us together every week to share a drop of whiskey together and talk about the world of Irish whiskey. Things tend to happen at great pace at the moment, and so we're here to keep up with it and try and share what's going on in our world of Irish whiskey that we've all fallen in love with over the past 2 years. Let me know what you're drinking. What are you sipping on? Caroline's joining us from Ohio. Jennifer's got 2 stacks in her glass. Great stuff. Evening, Scott. Irish Travels. Mike is joining us from Fort Myers. Hi, Mike. Ah, there you go. Oh, no, your cruise got cancelled. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Oh, that's bad news. Stick to buses. Stick to the whiskey buses. Johnny McNally sipping Limavady single malt. Good man. We'll talk about Limavady single malt in a little bit. Topeka, Kansas. There's Dee. Good evening, Dee. How are you? And Jeff, no doubt. Hello to Amy. Writer's Tears. Inniskillen. Wine cask, ice wine cask. That's an unusual one. We haven't heard that one in a while. So you're all very welcome to the Shebeen. A little bit of a different location, and there's a reason for that, because it's absolutely freezing in Ireland. Now, whatever you say about Minnesota and Alaska and the Arctic tundra, they don't hold a candle up to the cold in Ireland, because when Ireland is cold, you've never felt the cold like it. And anyone who's been to dry, cold conditions can attest to Ireland's moisture-laden cold, which sticks to you and so just wraps you in a coat of ice that you can't shake for hours. Growing up in Ireland, if you didn't see your breath inside the house, you were worried something was wrong. Maybe the house is on fire, because the houses were so cold growing up. There's no such thing as insulation. In fact, I don't know that we've mastered it yet either. I think fridge and freezer companies should be studying Ireland, because we've managed to figure out how to build houses that trap the cold inside better than any fridge or freezer ever could. So the Shebeen's usual location, where all the whiskey is in far too cold of a location that could take days to heat, and ain't nobody got days. So we're moving to a warmer location elsewhere to be able to come to you with the Shebeen tonight. So hopefully you won't mind too much that we've moved away from all the whiskies. We brought a few downstairs with us anyway. I have them up there on the shelf. Cian likes the Bauhaus poster. Lisa says some snow on the ground in New York. Oh, and a Powers John's Lane hot whiskey. That's the trick. That would cure a broken leg. A Powers John's Lane hot whiskey. 30 degrees in Dublin, says Tom. Fahrenheit. 24 degrees Fahrenheit here, Tom. I'll tell you what, in Cork, it is bitter. It's rotten, but it's an excuse for opening up nice warm bottles of whiskey. And Amy, of course, has to rub it in there. She's got the doors open in Arizona. I don't know if I'd trade the cold, though, of Ireland for the heat of Arizona. That might sound ridiculous, but I don't think I can take that heat. I mean, the fire here behind me is going to be hot enough for a few hours, but I can't take the heat. I have to have the cold. All right. You're all welcome anyway. to the Shebeen. What am I doing here talking about the weather? Purely Irish, an Irish pastime, isn't it? If you talk about the weather, I'm going to constantly be feeding this tonight anyway, keep it warm for us here. Snow tonight in Boston, 25 degrees. It's bitter out there. Stay warm wherever you are. Wrap up well. Get yourself a nice high-proof whiskey in your glass, and that should solve it. All right, so as you go throughout the night, keep me posted on what you're drinking, and I'd love to know what you're sipping on, Irish or otherwise. Always good to know what the crack is and what you're enjoying at the moment. So we have a lot to talk about this evening. I was looking through everything from the new releases to awards that have been happening for Irish whiskey, and I realized, boy, there's a lot has gone on in the week and a half, the 2 weeks since we last broadcast from Ireland. Last week we broadcast from Ohio very briefly in a very crowded, loud room, and we shared a little conversation with Kevin O'Gorman, master distiller, and Sean Gormley, the owner of Gormley's Pub in Rocky River, Ohio, as we were heading into our Festival of Midleton Whiskies, which was just about to kick off the next day, and a bit of crack there that night, and we did on Monday and Tuesday as well. We'll talk more about that as we go through the night. Put my laptop down there, and we've got the Irish whiskey laptop ready to go. This is the roving studio, the mobile studio, ready to rock and roll here. All right. So, if it's your first time joining the Shebeen, you're very welcome. A Shebeen in Ireland is a hidden away, hard to find yet, once you know kind of a location where alcohol is served mostly illegally, in the sense of if money changes hands, it shouldn't, it's illegal. There's no such thing as a license on a Shebeen. It could be hidden in somebody's back garden, it could be in their back shed, it could be behind the kitchen, it could be a hidden door in a house, it could be a purpose-built room out the back of the house, or a little outhouse out the back in your backyard. That's what a Shebeen is in Ireland. Everybody knows where to find the local Shebeen, and in times of lockdown, they were frequented as the pubs were closed. So they did a roaring trade to the Shebeens, and it's no wonder that alcohol consumption didn't drop during the pandemic. Everyone was inside the Shebeen. So our Shebeen is a little bit different. We're, small bit different. We're also have no liquor license to be selling you alcohol here over the air, but we are instead, of course, sharing a drop with you virtually. And Shebeen is as much for gathering and meeting the friends and having the crack as it is paying for alcohol. So that's what a Shebeen is, and we're replicating that every Sunday night. So you're all very, very welcome to the Shebeen. All right. As I said at the start, if you have the ability to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, we'd be very appreciative. The more people that know about us, the more we can talk about Irish whiskey and share the crack of what's going on. And the more people that fall in love with Irish whiskey, the more of the community we'll build, and the more people we'll meet. And I think many of you have seen the wonderful Irish whiskey community that has built up around Irish whiskey. And you don't meet many bad eggs in that community. And if you find them, they quickly leave, or they're told to get out. So subscribe and like if you can. So tonight's Lost Whiskey of the Week is Lost Irish. I'm sipping on a drop of Lost Irish whiskey, and that is the brainchild of Tim Murphy and his business partners. Tim Hurley. And Tim Hurley is a former Tullamore Dew global brand ambassador and trainer of brand ambassadors throughout the United States. And Tim and his business partner, Tim Hurley, started this company about 2 years ago. And our friend Donna Stewart, former Tullamore Dew brand ambassador, joined Tim and the team there to build out their team and to drive sales of Lost Irish whiskey. It's a new venture. Lost Irish is a blended Irish whiskey, a blend of the three styles of Irish whiskey: malt whiskey, pot still whiskey, and grain whiskey. Triple distilled, bottled at 40% ABV. And what they like to set themselves apart with is, aside from the triple distillation, triple style of Irish whiskey, not too unlike Tullamore Dew, of course, is that it is aged in casks that have been that come from 6 different continents, which are, you can read them out here now somehow. I will find them. Here we go. South African brandy casks, Japanese Mizunara oak, sherry casks, US bourbon casks, Caribbean rum casks, Australian tawny casks, and Colombian rum casks. And it's a nice, light, sweet sipping whiskey. And you can find it around the United States for in and around 30, I think the average price about $33 to $35 that I've seen it in the United States, a little bit more expensive in Ireland, thanks to our wonderful taxation system. But Lost Irish whiskey, friends of the show, Tim Hurley and Donna Stewart, we want to give them a shout out. So sipping on that earlier on, it's almost gone there now. So that's our whiskey of the week. Have you tried Lost Irish? If you have, let me know. I want to highlight Tim and the team because Well, it's coming up to Christmas, and small brands need help and need attention and need us to buy their products because they might not always have the backing of a large multinational. So whatever we can do to support him and the team, we will. And a nice little sipping whiskey, and great in cocktails too. Nice little bit of tonic water. Cheryl loves Lost Irish. And Bob says, lovely stuff, drinking it last week in Florida. How are you, Eric? Eric, the great man for the puns. Shebeen. So welcome to the Shebeen. Our whiskey of the week is Lost Irish. All right, let's put this back up even bigger. So let us talk about some new releases, because there are some new Irish whiskies that have arrived in the market in the past week. Let's start with West Cork Irish whiskey. West Cork has been a bit of a sleeping giant. West Cork whiskey the distillery is massive. We'll talk about it in a little bit, but they have two new releases that hit the market in the past week. December 6th, I think they were launched. They're also available right now online in Ireland and Poland and the UK, and they're moving to the United States early next year. So we'll keep you posted on that. But what's interesting about these two releases, one is a single pot still, which is the first time that West Cork has released a single pot still. 5-year-old single pot still made themselves in West Cork, in Skibbereen, in the West Cork Distillers Distillery. Aged in ex-bourbon barrels, 43% ABV. Nice that it's a little bit higher than 40. And it's got an unusual 66% to 33% malted and unmalted ratio. And it comes in at the affordable, I think, price for Irish whiskey today at €45. Tough to get cheaper than that in Ireland thanks to the duty. So on a bottle of that nature, 43% ABV, you should expect to be paying about 12 or 13 euros of your purchase price directly to the government on just the duty element alone. That doesn't include the VAT, the value-added tax of 23%. That's also in there as well. So between the duty and the value-added tax, you're looking at about 20 euros of that 45 going to the government. Can you believe that? 20 of that 45 goes to the government. So it'd be very hard for an Irish whiskey to be priced much lower than that for everyone to make their piece along the way. So good to see West Cork coming out with an age statement for the first time of their own whiskies. So the 5-year-old single pots is the first one. The second is a 7-year-old single malt that is made entirely in West Cork as well. Also age statement whiskey there, you see it on the label. And that has been aged in ex-oloroso casks for 4 years and then transferred to ex-bourbon barrels for another 3 years, which is interesting. And that is bottled at 46% ABV, and that is priced at €55. So those are available online at the moment in Ireland, and for shipping overseas, they're not yet available in the United States. The word is that the United States is up next for West Cork early in 2023. So we'll definitely keep you posted on that. We'll be hearing more from the folks at West Cork very soon. Next up, and West Cork, by the way, we have tasted West Cork whiskies on the lock-in a couple of years ago, and we had their US brand ambassador at the time on with us, and we found some great finds like the cask strength single malt that West Cork had, which was like a $35 whiskey, which was a rocket. It was about 60% ABV, and we were dancing around the room after it. That was a great whiskey. So we'll talk about West Cork in a little bit. So those are two new releases just launched this week, available now online in Ireland, UK, and Poland and Germany, I believe, and US coming up next week. Right, taking our sip. Thirsty work here, sitting in front of the fire, drying out slowly for you. Eric says 72% of the price of Scotch is for taxes. Yeah. There's nothing taxed as highly as alcohol. So Ireland and Scotland are very, 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 very high taxation on spirits. And it varies. Taxation varies. Like if you're a beer producer in Ireland, you're paying a different rate of tax than if you're a cider producer, different rate of tax than if you're a duty if you're a wine producer and a spirits producer. They're all different rates, bands of duty that's payable, and it's onerous, so onerous. That's why, if you're wondering why Irish whiskey tends to be less expensive everywhere in the world except Ireland, you can thank the Irish government for making it very expensive for those of us in Ireland. All right, what else has been released this week? So we also have a new whiskey from our friends David and Fiona Boyd Armstrong at Redemin Estate. in County Down in Northern Ireland, which is home to Shortcross Irish Whiskey. And you will recall that the winner of, according to me anyway, the sublime and unquestionable palate of mine, that the greatest whiskey I tasted on our whiskey bus tour of Ireland, where we tasted 63 different whiskies, was a peated single malt, double distilled single malt from Shortcross Irish Whiskey from Redemin Estate that had been aged in a orange liqueur and cognac cask. And I claimed it to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. And it went on to win a gold medal at the recent Irish Whiskey Awards. And we're going to try and release it as our next club whiskey. And this is now another release from the fine folks up at Redemin Estate. Shortcross Irish Whiskey has released a cask strength version of their first core release from the distillery. So they had their inaugural release, and then they released Ryan Malt. And I've only about a third of my bottle left. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was one of the highlights of the last year of whiskey releases. I thought it was very, very good. And a very unique flavor profile, thanks to the unique aging, I think, as well as the fermentation. The whole process, let's be honest, a very unique approach to distillation and fermentation at Shortcross due to their very unusual combination of stills and their very slow fermentation periods, often going to double fermentations. Ryan malt, it's 100% Irish malted rye and malted barley. That's the mash bill, which is then put through the double distillation. It's then aged in virgin chinkapin oak and ex-bourbon barrels. So chinkapin is a style of American oak. It's a cousin of the white oak. And in the cask strength version of the whiskey, a higher percentage of the chinkapin oak has been used. And the chinkapin is lending kind of fudge, dark toffee notes to that whiskey specifically, whereas white oak might lend a little bit of lighter vanilla caramel. Chinkapin tends to go a little bit darker, heavier, darker fudge. 66% ABV, and that's available at £85, which is about $100, in around $100. And I'm going to pick up a bottle of that because I was a big fan of the first one, and I want to support David and Fiona as well. And I really think they're doing great work up there. Under-marketed, under-appreciated currently, and there's other distilleries get a lot more attention. I will argue that the work that's being done up at Redemin Estate and Shortcross is some of the most exciting in Ireland, and we'll taste the fruits of their efforts over the coming years. But we're going to do something with them next. I don't have any more information now I can share on that today, but we're going to do more with Shortcross whiskey very, very soon. All right. This is distilled, Eric, at Redemin Estate, or Ademon, Redemin Estate in Northern Ireland. The only female-owned distillery on the island of Ireland, whiskey distillery, operational whiskey distillery currently. Making great, great whiskey. All right, next up is Dunville's. There isn't a week that goes by there's not a Dunville's release, and we're all the better for it. This is a 13-year-old single malt that was released in ex-bourbon barrels. So it's a Cooley, I believe it's a Cooley distillate, because I think it's double distilled. I'll be corrected if it's not. So ex-Cooley distillery, aged in bourbon barrels and finished in Oloroso sherry casks. They have a great finishing program, a great maturation program up at Ecklinville Distillery, where Dunville's is based. And there was 305 bottles released as a single cask for Fairley's Wines in Coleraine in Derry. And Coleraine is, it's about an hour, or well, what would that be? 2 hours west of, 2.5 hours west of Belfast. And that's bottle of cask strength, 57.1% ABV, and that is at the price of £150. And I think that's available directly through Fairley's in Coleraine. And if anyone's bought it in other places, you can let us know in the comments. If you bought it directly from Ecklinville Distillery or the Dunville's website, let us know as well. Now, that was the releases for the last week. Interestingly, we've got some Irish whiskey news, because there's never a day that goes by that somebody's not writing an article about something that's going on in the world of whiskey, or discovering something that's about to happen in the world of whiskey. Do you recognize these two men? Russell Crowe, Gladiator fame, etc., and Ed Sheeran. They shouldn't be in the same picture for any reason other than they're great drinking buddies, and they enjoy a bit of whiskey and a pint together. They are two of a 5-person team that has come together to get behind a distillery in Ireland. Papers were lodged in Dublin in the last week for a distillery investments company that Russell Crowe, Ed Sheeran, Ronan Keating, former lead singer of Boyzone, Irish boy band, Jimmy Carr, the British comedian from Liverpool, I think, and their manager. 5 of them came together to set up this distillery company. Nobody knows anything about it, except that they're all shareholders. Nobody else seems to be involved, just these 5 guys. And it wouldn't be the first time that celebrities have got involved in the Irish whiskey world, as I think you've seen. For example, you've got Conor McGregor backing proper number 12 Irish whiskey, very, very successful. Shout about it, scream about it, taste it, love it, hate it, whatever. It's controversial. It's out there. Very, very successful nonetheless. Fastest growing Irish whiskey in history. Conor McGregor has been involved in Irish whiskey now for the last 3 or 4 years. You've got Bono involved in the Church of Oak Distillery in Kildare. You've got, who else in the celebrity world is involved in Irish whiskey? Well, you've got golfers. What's his name? You've got 2 golfers involved in the world of Irish whiskey, and their names are evading me now at the moment. Let me know there in the comments. Who's the guy from Northern Ireland? It'll come to me. You've also got Liev Schreiber, who's involved with Sláinte Irish whiskey. And so there's money available, and people are the celebrity money is finding its way into Irish whiskey, surprisingly. So we will wait and see what's going to happen from these guys. So that's one thing to keep an eye out on. I'll keep an eye out for it, because don't waste your time. Let me do it for you. I'll do the hard work for you, all right? Ryan Reynolds will probably be next as Bob. Ryan Reynolds, yeah, so he's got a gin brand. And I know that, the guys from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia released an Irish whiskey, didn't they? They had 2 Irish whiskies, kind of a charity program there, going back about 6 months ago as well. The Pogues, that's another one, yeah. And the Pogues is kind of a tenuous one. It's more kind of a licensing of the name than the celebrities being behind it, really. It's West Cork Distillers as well who made that. But that's, yeah, you could say maybe the first hat tip at a kind of a celebrity, if you don't count John Jameson. Graham McDowell, that's right. Graham McDowell. And not Padraig Harrington. No, I don't think Padraig Harrington's involved in whiskey yet. But I've heard some names of celebrities in Ireland, or celebrities getting involved in Irish whiskey, and they have no input whatsoever. There's a few that may be coming down the line, but who knows? The Father Ted horse. That's a good one. The Father Ted horse. That's a niche. That's a niche joke there, Jeff. Good man. So Boutique Irish Whiskey Company uses this silhouette of a horse that appears in the comedy Father Ted, with like all these like rainbow, like glowing shadows coming out of it, as part of a song called My Lovely Horse in Father Ted. And you're right. You know, that's the biggest celebrity Irish whiskey that I can name, Jeff. You're dead right. That's a good one. Kind of proud of you for that, Jeff. What else is happening in the world of Irish whiskey? We got more news. Here's an interesting one. So the lovely team, the McAllisters at Hascraw Distillery, we had them on one of our Meet the Maker events back last year, or earlier this year. And the Hascraw Distillery is not far from Ballinasloe in Galway, and they are moving at great speed to create a very environmentally friendly, kind of carbon neutral, tech-driven approach to sustainability at the distillery. And we're really excited by what they're doing, Garrett and Michelle McAllister, what they're doing at the distillery, and in a really small site in the town of Hascraw. And Hascraw is a town that is fading and has been declining, like many Irish towns have been over the past few years, as the young people emigrated to the big cities and farming perhaps became more commercialized and less manually labor driven, and machinery took over and less labor was required in towns and villages. And so cities, of course, took the people. Hascraw was one of those. There was a great mill in the center of Hascraw, and Garrett and Michelle took over the mill, took over that site. They bought the whole site, and they've been laboriously restoring, not just like building a distillery, but restoring the shell of the building and putting the distillery inside it. They just applied for planning permission a couple of miles away for the warehouses where they want to mature their whiskey. So, of course, a part of whiskey maturation or whiskey production is the maturation phase. It's the longest part of whiskey making, because it takes at least 3 years and normally much more to make the whiskey to mature. They applied for planning permission nearby. The closest they could find was about 2 miles away. They found a site where a warehouse could be built. And they applied for planning permission and it was rejected. It was turned down. They were denied the planning permission for their warehouse. One of the reasons given was that there were mammals on site, but there was no mammals specified. So whatever that was, I don't know, bats or something. In any case, something we should be aware of is that this is not the first time that local governments and councils have turned down planning requests for distilleries who want to build maturation warehouses. West Cork Distillers had an entire community mobilized against them in West Cork. They didn't want to see maturation warehouses in fields near their homes. So they objected to warehouses being put there. John Teeling was refused planning permission for a huge number of warehouses because of Great Northern Distilleries' growing needs for warehouse space. He was turned down. He bought land in County Louth and Dundalk, especially for the purpose of building warehouses. Can't do anything with that land. Is not allowed to build warehouses on it. And now you see a Hascraw going through the same thing. So one of two challenges are ahead of the Irish whiskey industry. We can build all the distilleries we want, and we might argue that that still won't meet demand for Irish whiskey relative to our counterparts, of which we crush every day in terms of flavour and taste, as you know. But we won't be able to supply any of that whiskey if we don't have the warehouse space and we don't have the bottling capacity to bottle whiskey. So the two areas that have been identified recently as huge potential areas for chokeholds in the Irish whiskey industry and a potential catastrophic full kind of halt that could be put to Irish whiskey exports is that we won't have the space to age our whiskey and we won't have the bottling capacity to be able to bottle our whiskey. So as it stands today, neither the warehouse space nor the bottling capacity exists for the projected growth of Irish whiskey over the next 10 years. It doesn't exist. So it has to be built. It has to be approved. It has to be built out. It has to be operational. All those things take time. Every time a Hascraw distillery or another distillery gets their planning permission rejected, it's back to the drawing board. It's submitting a new plan. It's maybe exploring a different avenue. These things take time. They're not guaranteed to get back in front of local governments or local councils speedily. And so it takes time. It takes time. So those are chokeholds that we're identifying in the world of Irish whiskey at the moment. So Hascraw just came the news there this week that they're struggling to get approval on that. Bob asks, don't warehouses pay property taxes? Bob, it's very interesting. In Ireland, we don't pay property taxes the way you do in the United States. So in Ireland, once you own a home or you own a business, you own it outright. You don't have to pay taxes on it. We have other taxes, which we would argue are probably higher, that come at us in different ways in terms of duty on goods and VAT, value-added tax on goods, indirect and direct personal taxation. Corporate tax is low in Ireland, but we don't have what's called kind of property tax, the way you'd look at it, like based on the value of a property, it's X% each month or each year. We don't have that. There are taxes that are due based on certain things depending on the business that you're in, but it won't be based on property alone. So it's kind of a different setup. Eric says nobody will be able to pronounce that distillery. No, I know. It's even in Ireland. I've heard 50 different pronunciations from a Hascraw to a Hascraw to a Hascraw. I think, it'll be a tough one, especially in the United States, won't it? So that's up next on Irish Whiskey News. All right, so let's talk about our distillery of the week. Anybody hazard a guess? I'm going to pour a drop of Redbreast Christmas Cake Whiskey, which just arrived this week, available in the Midleton Distillery Members Club, the Barrel Club. I'm going to pour a drop of this because I've been testing it this afternoon and I've enjoyed it. Lovely warming sensation. This is a lovely ABV of 58%, not cask strength, but 58%. It's got a component of this that is pot still whiskey aged in cream sherry. Cream sherry is kind of a sweet blend of sherries. Could be Oloroso and PX, for example. And cream sherry is very popular in Ireland and the UK back in going back all through the 1900s, the 20th century. And my grandmother drank cream sherry. One famous one was called Harvey's Bristol Cream. And it was a kind of a blue bottle, not unlike the Waterford bottles, say a little bit brighter blue. Not somewhere like what's that Scotch? Haig, the David Beckham, the awful Scotch square blue bottle he's got. Anyway, it's kind of like that. So this is a Christmas cake whiskey, and called Christmas cake because the sherry components that historically would have gone into making your Christmas cake, in other words, to soaking your dried fruits, your raisins and your cherries, almonds, whatever else you like to put in there, were soaked in sherry. And so Redbreast is associated with Christmas because of the sherry component that's aged in Redbreast. Bob asks if you can get the Christmas cake shipped to the US. You can't, Bob. No, it's just available in Ireland and the UK right now. Jim Brannigan wants to know if this is in Cork. Well, I'll be giving it away. I have to tell you, I won't tell you the state. Any guesses? What is this distillery of the week? What if I told you it was 14 times the size of Teeling Distillery? 14 times the size of Teeling. Would you guess it then? The fire's going down. We have to do something about it. Right, while you're guessing there, a few blocks of wood. Not great in order, and Jeff, no. Cooley, no, not Cooley. Not Cooley. 14 times the size of Teeling, which is so unusual when you don't hear much about it. Bob got it. West Cork Distillers. And they're Distillery of the Week because of what they released this week. And that is their two, not only because of what they released, but the two whiskies that they came out with, the 5-year-old single pot still and the 7-year-old single malt, are showing great promise. And I have a couple of samples on the way to me, and I'll share them once I've had a chance to taste them. But the reviews I got on the single malt especially was that it was very, very good. West Cork Distillers has been in business since 2003. Which is extraordinary. So next year, their 20th year in business, yet you don't hear about them. You don't hear anything about them. They have 70 different whiskies that they make in there. They supply to 70 countries. There are 20 plus whiskies that they have themselves, but they export more than whiskey. So what they're doing, they do more than anything else is they supply ingredient alcohol to whiskey companies, spirit companies, vodka companies, gin companies all over the world. United States, Japan, etc. They even send Irish whiskey out to Japan. They send Irish whiskey to United States to be blended with other whiskies to make new hybrid whiskies. They have been a huge kind of a contract whiskey maker for many, many years, in addition to schnapps. And they had a spirit drink, kind of a liqueur called Drumbeg many years ago, which was kind of supposed to taste like whiskey, but it wasn't 40% ABV. Anyway, they are a massive operation, and John O'Connell and the two McCarthy brothers, three friends, set up the distillery in 2003. The McCarthys were fishermen who were out of work, and John O'Connell was a Dr. John O'Connell is a scientist who has worked in the food industry for many, many years, and the three of them got together, didn't know much about operating a distillery, but bought a couple of old schnapps stills from Switzerland and started distilling in their back garden. I don't know if they were supposed to, but they did. They've since moved to massive facilities in Skibbereen and West Cork, and they're a huge operation, absolutely huge. There's the McCarthys, and it's John on the left, and the two McCarthy lads in the middle, and to the right. And they are a massive employer in Skibbereen and West Cork. So Skibbereen is a beautiful part of West Cork. They've maybe my favourite super value in all of Ireland in West Cork, in Skibbereen. And Skibbereen was one of the areas hardest hit by the potato crop failure and the subsequent famine that ensued because the British wouldn't allow us into the grain stores to be able to use grain to make bread. Instead, they sold it all overseas. The famine affected West Cork and Skibbereen in a big way. Mass loss of life in West Cork. It's been an area of Ireland that has been decimated by immigration and death for many, many years. West Cork Distillers is the greatest thing to happen to Skibbereen in many, many years. I think they have about 150 staff. There isn't a family in Skibbereen that doesn't work for West Cork Distillers or who knows somebody working for West Cork Distillers. That is guaranteed. So it is a massive employer. These lads are hugely thought of. They've been growing at a massive pace, and they build everything themselves. So they don't go to 4 sites in Scotland and say, give us 10 copper pot stills. They see what tools they have in their back pockets, what bits of copper were lying around the old shed, and they make the stills, they fix the stills, they repair the operations themselves. Very hands-on men. And they're our Distillery of the Week because they are, I think, about to awaken and about to share with us, who are whiskey fans, more of the whiskies we'd like to see, because I think historically lower entry level maybe whiskies that maybe challenged us a little bit. Let's be honest about it. There was some gold, but there were some unpolished diamonds in there, let's say, as well, in releases from West Cork. I've got a few casks down there that I've put aside that'll be part of the Stories as Whiskey Club for future releases, or we might blend them, or we might release them. We'll see what we'll do with them. I have 2 casks of pot still, and I have 1 pot still and 2 casks of single malt down there for the past 2 years. So they're aging away down there. I've never been there. I'm due to go there in January though. So I will compile my findings when I get to West Cork, get to Shebeen, West Cork Distillers. Scott, the Christmas cake is only available to the Barrel Club members currently. I don't know if there's any plans for it to be more widely released. There might be, but if there are, I've not heard them. So right now it's just the Barrel Club in Ireland. All right, that's our Distillery of the Week, West Cork Distillers. They've also recently hired Sinead Gilbert. Sinead is a former Irish Distillers Prestige Brands manager. Sinead would have been involved with Redbreast and the higher end marks over the years, working out of New York and Dublin and Ireland. Would have been a rising star inside Irish Distillers. She has been snagged by West Cork Distillers. She's from that area. She's from Clonakilty in West Cork, and she is now leading marketing for West Cork. And we've had some conversations about to find out more about what they're doing, and maybe getting us a bit of access so that we can learn more about how they build out that massive facility, that 7 million litre capacity a year distillery. So a visit is on the card. So I'm glad Sinead is there now as well. All right, what else have we got we want to talk about? Okay, let's talk about some Irish Whiskey Awards over the past week. There were Whiskey Advocate magazine released their top 20 whiskies. They released, I think, the top 100 in total, but the top 20 they just released. And let's talk about them, because some great placings for Irish whiskey. Number 2 in the world by Whiskey Advocate was Redbreast Kentucky Oak. That's got that virgin oak component. We tasted it at our Festival of Midleton Whiskies last week, and I know many of you are fans. That sweet virgin oak that you're so familiar with your own bourbons. If you're a bourbon fan, you're used to those very, very kind of juicy, sweet vanilla notes. Those shine through in a big way in the Redbreast Kentucky Oak. It's not my favorite Redbreast. I'm more of a fortified wine-led Redbreast fan, but I know Redbreast Kentucky Oak has been doing the rounds. Whiskey Advocate had all these whiskies tasted blindly, so you didn't actually know what you were tasting. So I prefer a blind whiskey tasting, so all the bias and the emotion is removed from it, and you're just writing on the alcohol. And I don't know the makeup of the judges that judged, where they were based, or whether there was a good spread from across the whiskey world or not. But nevertheless, number 2 in the world, score of 96 points out of 100, Redbreast Kentucky Oak. 6 points, another Midleton win. Midleton Very Rare 2022. Again, another one we tasted at our Festival of Midleton Whiskies this week. And that is a lovely, 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 lovely whiskey. Light, floral, elegant, balanced, yet complex at the same time. And Midleton Very Rare is the ongoing annual release of the finest, as Midleton puts it, the finest of whiskies that are available to us in the warehouses. And the master distiller's job is, over the course of a year, to be putting aside batches of whiskey. They put aside about 300, 350 casks from which to draw from, that they identify over the course of the year. They're narrowed down to the point where the master distiller chooses his blend of pot still and grain whiskies. And 2022 has whiskies aged between 12 and 32 years of age. I think it is 32 years of age. So a big range. Grain forward. Kevin O'Gorman is a fan. The master distiller is a fan of the grain, that light, elegant orchard fruit, especially when it's paired with the bourbon barrels. over a long period of time. So we had a 35-year-old single grain that we tasted, ex-bourbon barrels in Ohio this week, and you can see why Kevin's a fan of the grain. So grain and pot blend. So congratulations to Midleton. Number 8 is a big win for the McNally family. So Marty and Darrell McNally, founders of Limavady Irish Whiskey, two of them former Bushmills distillers, and they are distributed in the US by Whistlepig, and they have scored 8 in the world with their whiskies, their source whiskies. They are quite open that they source them from Great Northern Distillery, and they're all about the single cask releases in the sense of single barrel, where every single batch and the barrel it came from is identified on the label. So this barrel 39 was the winner of the place number 8 out of the top 100 whiskies that Whiskey Advocate chose. Darrell built up a lot of great relationships in Spain over the years with Spanish sherry cask manufacturers, and he uses great sherry casks. So it's a heavily sherried single malt, heavily sherried, rich, can be quite astringent if you're not looking for it, and it's there. It's a strong sherry, heavily sherried single malt, but under $50, it's a great value whiskey, really great value whiskey. And then next up, the final place was for 16 out of 100 for Bushmills 12-year-old. And it reminded me that I don't have a bottle of Bushmills 12-year-old, and I want to remedy that. That is a relatively new release in the US. It was a distillery. It's slightly different to the distillery release. Well, so there's a 12-year-old went to Asia. There was a distillery 12-year-old, and now there's the American and rest of the world 12-year-old. And I can't for the life of me remember which one, whether one is the same as the other. In any case, the 12-year-old, I remember the US release 12-year-old, the global release 12-year-old now being a wonderful drop of single malt, and I need to get it. So congratulations to Bushmills and to Lauren and Alex up there. I sat next to a McNally, Mr. McNally, actually, Johnny, up at our Festival of Midleton Whiskies, and I was sharing with him the story of the McNallys in Limavady, and he was beside himself with excitement. He was a proud Irishman and never heard of Limavady. I told him the story of the origin of Irish whiskey really coming, or the first real distillery license being granted in around Limavady back in the early 1600s by King James I, which Bushmills claim. And he was very excited about that. So the McNally name is being carried very faithfully forward in the world of Irish whiskey at the moment. He poured a drop there. Got very excited. Poured a drop down the front of me. All right. So those were some Irish whiskies. Great to see that recognition. Best in the world. 4 great whiskies there in the top 20. And here was the number 1 for those of you who might want to know what's number 1 then. And it was simply a Jack Daniel's Bonded, 50% ABV, aged for 4 years, and surprisingly, incredibly, and what a great news, it's a $30 whiskey. So I think somebody here was mentioning that they tried the number 1 whiskey in the world and enjoyed it. I had the number 1 tonight. Sorry, not an Irish. It's pretty good. Caroline wants to know, why is Midleton Very Rare 2022 so hard to get? Caroline, the secret is in the name. Very rare. So it's produced in quite small quantities relative to other Irish whiskies. I'll give you an example. There would be about twice as much Midleton Very Rare as Gold Spot was released, right? Now, you know how quickly Gold Spot disappeared? Midleton Very Rare would have a global allocation of just about double that. Just about double what was released for Gold Spot. That tells you how rare it is. You know, there was only 480 bottles of Gold Spot went to Ohio, where you are, and about 1,000 bottles perhaps of Midleton Very Rare go to the state, which is not a lot. So that, if that, I don't know if it's even that. It's less than that. So it's rare. It's hard to find. It's in limited quantities. The quantities that have been produced have increased over the years. There's no doubt about it. But it is quite a rare whiskey by comparison. So let's say Gold Spot is a 30,000 bottle release or 36,000 bottle release. Jameson each year sells 120 million bottles. That's the difference. So the reason you see Jameson everywhere is because there's enough of it to be everywhere, and there's not enough of the Midleton Very Rare. Caroline says, joke's on me because she got 4. Well, there you go. It is only as rare as how little work you put in to find it, because it's out there. It's out there. And let's talk a little bit about our Festival of Midleton Whiskies, folks. For those of you who attended, thank you so much. For those of you who bought a raffle ticket to be part of or to be in with a chance to attend, thank you so much. An incredibly moving week in Ohio. Just got back 36 hours ago, and Kevin O'Gorman, Master Distiller, joined me there and was so kind to lead 2 nights of an incredible whiskey tasting, 10 different whiskies, culminating in a 47-year-old, $46,000 bottle of whiskey, Silent Distillery, Chapter 3 from the Midleton Distillery. It was extraordinary. And as were all whiskies, thanks to the delivery with which Kevin shared all the whiskies with us, the stories he told, the poor guy, I had to rush him through night number 1. He could have talked about an hour for each whiskey, and we had a deadline to keep to raise money for our charity partner and to get to our auctions. But we raised $70,000 for an end-of-life hospice for the homeless who are terminally ill homeless in Cleveland, Ohio, called Malachy House. We had a chance to visit it on Tuesday morning and visit and meet with some of the patients, the poor creators who are at the end of their days and are finding comfort and solace and care and so much love in Malachy House in Cleveland. You walk around that complex and it is like angels are taking care of people. They float through the corridors, they smile, they say hello to you, and you can tell the love that's in there and the care that they have for those who have such greater needs than they do and we do at the time. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful charity. So for all of you who attended, participated from afar, supported through shares or telling your friends about it, it was an extraordinary night. $70,000. That's $120,000 raised in 2 years, in 2 events. We created this event last year, and we're not going to stop. So next year, we're going to do it even bigger and better. Kevin O'Gorman has indicated that he would like to be part of it in a bigger way. And so next year, we're going to do even more events, more chances to participate at every price point, so that no matter what the price point is or what your schedule is, there'll be something for you over a greater period of time and it won't be in December. We think we're going to try and pull it forward a few months in maybe some warmer climate as well, warmer temperatures for those of you who wear shorts for a living. And so a wonderful event. Thank you all, and really appreciative of Kevin and the team at Irish Distillers in Midleton for relieving Kevin of his duties for long enough to be able to go over to Ohio. And I know he's in the middle of planning the new distillery at Midleton and a lot of exciting releases in the first half of 2023, which you're going to be blown away by the way. And to have him in Ohio was just very, very special. Very, very special. Jim says, why Rocky River, not Kettering? Well, Jim, I've never heard of anyone in Kettering buying a $46,000 bottle of whiskey, but the next time someone does, tell them to get in touch with me, and we'll definitely give them attention and give them support if they're trying to raise money for charity with it. But Rocky River is where the home of Gormley's pub. Sean Gormley took a chance last year. Sean buys the bottle himself, and the entire business model is based on splitting the revenue that's made. So first, the costs are covered. If Sean doesn't sell the tickets, he doesn't cover the cost of his bottle. Sean got some incredible donations from people who didn't even want to take any whiskey this month or this year, which meant we were left even with whiskey left over. So the bottle still has whiskey in it because of extraordinary donations, like a $25,000 donation that was made by one single man, and he didn't want to drop whiskey in return for it. So Sean takes the risk. He buys the bottle. It goes on his account. He has to pay that account off. And if he doesn't break even on ticket sales, then for night number 2, then he doesn't make any money at all. And then night number 1, revenue goes to the charity from night number 1, and also from our raffle that we run, and from individual donations and our auctions on the night as well. So $70,000. We were close to ending night number 2 at $53,000, and Kevin O'Gorman pulled out 2 bottles that we had tasted over the 2 nights: a 27-year-old all port single pot still cask strength, and a 35-year-old single grain cask strength ex-bourbon barrel, and he put them up for auction. They raised $8,000. Others put up money, just donated $1,000 here, $2,000 there, for us to get to $70,000, which was incredible. So great night all over. So next time next time it takes place, I'm going to give you plenty of notice. We're going to start planning this in the next few weeks again, and we're going to try and bring it forward. A lot of it depends on when the whiskey is released. So Chapter 4, Sláinte Distillery Chapter 4 is being released in probably April or May, probably May at this stage. And that means that it can take a while for it to get to the US, so it'll be after May, June. Anyway, we'll work on it. We will work on it and we'll get it done. All right, so let's talk about the newest Irish whiskey distilleries. The newest Irish whiskey distilleries. Hi to Donna, if you're tuned in. Great to see you. We had our whiskey of the week, Lost Irish. Woo! Sipped on that to begin with. Now I've moved on to a bit of Redbreast Christmas cake. There are about 42, 43, 44 distilleries in Ireland at the moment, depending on who you talk to, what time of the day you talk to them, what their interest is in them. And that number seems to fluctuate depending on which stills are commissioned or who can agree that what they're making is Irish whiskey. Anyway, let's just say 40 plus Irish whiskey distilleries, which is a lot. Because when I was growing up in Ireland in the 1980s, we had two. We had Midleton on the south coast of Ireland, and we had Bushmills on the north coast of Ireland. Those were the only two distilleries on the island of Ireland in the for most of the 1980s. It wouldn't be till 1987 when Cooley Distillery started producing whiskey instead of just potato alcohol. And it was 5 distilleries right up until, no more than 5 distilleries until about 2012. And then Dingle kickstarted the revolution in 2012. And so 35 distilleries have come online in the last 10 years. 35 distilleries have come online in the last 10 years. That's a massive amount. Now, they range in size, don't they? From small, tiny little distilleries to massive international build-outs. Everything in between. Some are foreign invested. Some belong to big drinks companies. Others belong to individuals and families who put their money where their mouth is. So there is a spectrum of distilleries. And what that means is that over the next few years, we're going to have a lot of Irish whiskey hitting the market. A lot of Irish whiskey. And it gives us great choice as consumers. Will every distillery make it? It's unlikely. But we hope that they will. Challenges are distribution and getting to market and pricing and marketing and all those things. So we'd love them all to succeed, but we know they can't all, sadly. But I want to draw attention to two, which are particularly interesting to me. And these would be at opposite ends of the spectrum. And I don't think they are really well known at all, really, in the United States. Those who are tuned into certain things in Ireland, like Puccin, may be aware of them. But let's start with the first one, and it is Bwaylock Distillery. Now, there's a good one for the American accent. Forget a Hascraw. What about Bwaylock? And Boyle, you'd be familiar with the name Boyle. If somebody is called Boyle or O'Boyle, that is the English for Bwaylock. So Bwaylock is an old Irish name. Interestingly enough, so Michael O'Boyle is the founder of Bwaylock Distillery. It's in Donegal. That's the size of it. It looks like a small little house, doesn't it? That's the distillery. And it is in Donegal on the northwest coast of Ireland. And interestingly enough, when we talk about the Irish and the English version of a name, I was listening to I have Irish whiskey in the brain. An Irish language historian recently talk about how we have come to lose sight of the importance of which came first in Ireland, the Irish version or the English version of a name or a place or a word for something. The English did a great job at anglicizing our Irish language. The reason we have the word whiskey today is because over the many years they couldn't pronounce Ishka Baha, the water of life. Ishka Baha, Ishka Ba, Ishki Ba, Ishki, whiskey, right? That's the etymology of whiskey. That's a great example of whiskey being the English for Ishka Baha, as opposed to Ishka Baha being the Irish for whiskey. Now, what's the difference? Well, the historian was saying that wherever the Irish word came first and the English word was a derivative, we're doing the Irish language a disservice by saying it's the Irish for something in English, as opposed to saying the English is the English for something in Irish. Does that make sense? And I thought that was a remarkable observation to make. For example, my name in Irish is Barra, B-A-R-R-A. Barry is the English for Barra, as opposed to Barra being the Irish for Barry, right? So, etymology, language tangent there as we go onto the let me see, Bwaylock Distillery. That's it. Whale Distillery. So, and in Donegal, here is a wonderfully detailed map that I've stolen from Wikipedia, and we've put it up here to show you Donegal, northwest coast of Ireland. When you talk about going up north, you typically talk about going to the kind of the 6 counties of Northern Ireland. We're not getting into a political debate or discussion about the establishment of an Irish Free State or anything, just to state that you can also go north but still be in Donegal. And Donegal is a raw, barren, lawless land. Beautiful, beautiful part of the world. And it's tough to get to. It's the home of Slieve League Distillers in Ardra. It's the home of Whalelock Distillery up there in Donegal as well. And very, very tough to get to. But Crawley Distillery is beside Donegal Airport, for example, as well. So another distillery up there. So Whalelock, they are right now making gins and poitíns. And under a couple of names, Mulroy Bay is one of the names of their gin and their poitín. And they also do Whalelock released, like Mountain Dew. So Donegal Mountain Dew specifically. So like peated poitíns that are rested in casks. So there's no such thing as aging poitín. You're not allowed to age it. You're only allowed to rest it in casks for a number of weeks. And Whalelock is making all of these things in 2 stills, 2 very small stills. Here they are. 250 and 350 litres in size, and these are direct fire stills, a bit like in Killoan. What does direct fire mean? It means that there's a flame underneath the still, heating the copper so the liquid inside is heated to the degree needed to be able to separate your water and your alcohol. And there's not many distilleries doing that in Ireland, I can tell you. So direct flame, direct fire, it's a very small little operation. Whalelock Distillery is the name of it, and that is in Donegal. And I bring it to your attention because they will need our support at some point in the future. And if you're planning a trip to Ireland and planning a trip to Donegal, put Crawley Distillery in Donegal, put Slieve League Distillers and in Donegal on your list, and put Whalelock Distillery, very, very small, run by one man, Michael O'Boyle. And he's the owner, the founder, the distiller, the maker, the marketer, the producer, the bottle washer, the picker of the grains, you name it. He's even growing a little bit of barley in his little garden in front of the small little distillery, and he's using that to make his own poitín as well. So fair play to Michael up there in Whalelock Distillery. And of course, the traditional American way of pronouncing Donegal is Donegal. I went to Donegal. No, Donegal. Or in Irish, here we go now. So Donegal is the English for Dún na Nowell in Irish, Dún na Nowell. And the English, if you come to Ireland, you'll notice that we have all of our signs in Ireland for places are in English and Irish. So we've got both Irish and English right there. Donegal, great home of poitín back in the day, back after 1661 when the Crown passed a law banning the production of poitín because it was so hard for the tax and the excise inspectors to get the producers of alcohol, especially up in Donegal, up in the Inishowen Peninsula, to pay their taxes on the alcohol they were producing, which they'd been producing for generations and nobody asked them for a penny. Suddenly the Crown comes along and says, here, give us some money there for all the alcohol you're producing, as if you're being charged for making your bread every morning. And they said, no, we're not paying that. So there's awful scuffles and fights between the excise duty collectors and the locals, to the point where the Crown got so sick of it that they said, that's the end of it. We're banning it all. You can't anymore make poitín up there in Donegal. Didn't stop them. They just didn't make it legally. They were instead making it behind trees and in valleys and in back gardens and in sheds. And the excise duty officers would be looking for plumes of smoke to see where was a still being heated up from. Where was the fire? Next up is another distillery of a different scale and different size, but also new and unheard of in the United States. And it is a celebrity-backed distillery. It is backed by Bono and his investment firm. This is Bono's entry into the world of whiskey. It's called the Church of Oak, and it is massive. It's in County Kildare. Another fancy map entering here. Church of Oak in County Kildare. Kildare, has turned into an Irish language lesson tonight. Kildare is the English for Kildara. Kildara. Dara is oak, and Kill is a church. Church of the Oak. Church of Oak. Imagine anywhere you see dar, dare, derry in Ireland, all of those are derivatives of the word oak. So dar Gaelach, the Midleton Very Rare series, means Irish oak. Dar is oak. Kildara, Kildare, Church of Oak. Right? We'll be giving out certificates for your Irish language accomplishments and proficiency at the end of today. The Church of Oak is extraordinary. It is and they have done almost no marketing. They don't want anyone to know about what they're doing. They don't let any tours in. They don't let any cameras in. They don't let any videos in, any video cameras in. They want to show certain people around a little bit of what they're doing, but they are distilling in massive, massive quantities. Grain, pot, and malt whiskey all being made in the one massive distillery. It's an old former mill, I believe, or maybe it's the old distillery, the old... might be the old, I know it's connected or it's inspired by the old Kildare distillery, Monasterevin, isn't it? Monasterevin distillery in County Kildare. And it's a massive operation. And they will be releasing whiskey in the next 4 to 5 years, I would expect. We're going to try and get in there and see what we can find out. But it is off the radar. Like, you don't hear about it, but it's there. And I want to bring some of these to your attention because all of a sudden, suddenly a whiskey distillery will pop up with their own whiskey. I'm like, wait, what? I never heard of this distillery before. Where's it been? And you've got some of those distilleries that have been quietly making whiskey for quite a while and you don't hear anything about them. And I'll share more of them in the coming weeks, like Burren, the Burren Distillery in West Clare, in County Clare. Mad, crazy, mad scientist things going on there in the Burren in County Clare. And we're going to talk to them and find out a little bit more about what they're doing as well. All right. Home of the Irish Stud Farm. It is. What a fantastic, Johnny says, home of the Irish Stud Farm. I tell you what, if you're going between Ireland, Dublin and Galway, you'll drive past this kind of combination place, which is the Irish Japanese Gardens, and also the home of the National Stud, which is where horses are bred, and some of the greatest horses that have raced in Ireland, in the United Kingdom, that are owned by very wealthy sheikhs and very wealthy businessmen and women in Ireland and the UK. The National Stud is where they will put them out to stud, and where great horses have come out of. Some amazing winners that have ended up in the National Stud. It's a fantastic tour, and you see the amount of money that's in the breeding of horses. I mean, it's astronomical, but they've done a great job there of restoring this old site that was owned by an Englishman going back a century, and he was a kind of a mad scientist guy who believed that horses should give birth in certain periods of the moon, in terms of he was very into the horoscopes and where the moon was positioned and where the planets are moving, and he maintained that there was a certain time of a day, a week, a month, a year when the best horses would be born, and if you could plan your covering of a horse and the delivery of the reproducing liquid at the right time, that you might get a horse delivered in this ideal period for when he maintained the best horses were born. Anyway, mad story. You're going to hear all about him when you go to the National Stud Farm in Dublin. Get the drone up, says Tom. It's great up there. Yeah, really good. Look at that. Look at that design. Isn't it incredible? Put that up even higher. Look at that, like a skylight, letting light in on a little patch of barley inside the lobby of the building. Again, they're not doing any tours right now. It's not open to the public. Big gates up outside and very kind of minimalist branding, but something for us to pay attention to, because I think we'll hear a lot more about them. What's up next? We have got a great tasting tomorrow night, folks. For those of you who are part of our Stories and Sips Whiskey Club, and you were kind enough to purchase a bottle of this Cliffs of Moher whiskey, 3 bottles, Oloroso, Pot Still, Pedro Jimenez Malt, and Palo Cortado Malt. We are tasting all 3 tomorrow night at 7 p.m. What a Monday night. Who needs school on Tuesday when you've got whiskey tasting on Monday night, or work? It's going to be a great night with Louise McGuan, founder of JJ Carey Irish Whiskey, and she is going to be joining us for a fantastic tasting. And we'll be recording it. If you're not there live, don't worry. We always record our club events. We put them into our club website on storiesandsipps.com. But Louise is going to share a few things with us. Remind us of the journey that she's been on with certain cask programs. The program that she's released with us is her sherry cask program, where she's experimenting with same distillate across very different sherry casks. She's bottling different releases, comparing them, and she is moving on to different casks. She's got ex-Macallan scotches, Macallan scotch barrels. She's got all kinds of things that she's experimenting with. She's going to share those programs with us. We're going to talk about the program that this whiskey went on, between maturing on her farm in County Clare, being finished in the Cliffs of Moher, 700 feet above the Atlantic Ocean, a remarkable project that changed the whiskies dramatically. And we are going to learn about the effect that the climate had on those whiskies. We know the effect because she has aged exactly the same whiskies in the farm, so she knows she can compare the two, and the color and the flavor difference are remarkably different. It's going to be a great night. These are our third, fourth, and fifth releases that have ever borne the Stories and Sips name, and the second, third, and fourth that have borne the Stories and Sips Whiskey Club name, which is really exciting. So 3 whiskies released at once. I was so glad that everybody who wanted one got one. Some of you got 2, which was great to see as well. Nobody got 3 except for yours truly, but I think you'll allow me so that I can taste them with you. And I had to. The whiskey world is a fascinating world. I had to go buy my bottles just like you bought your bottles. I got mine from Irish Malts, and here they are. So looking forward to cracking those 3 open tomorrow night. What a Monday night. A great night. Johnny has taken an exploratory sip from each. Very good. Very, very good. Can't wait for tomorrow. Cheryl's bottles are still sealed, but it's getting harder every day. So you've only 24 hours to wait, Cheryl, and they will be opened and enjoyed. And Cheryl, you were part of our tasting on the Cliffs of Moher, so you got to taste them up there in a unique environment. Absolutely fantastic. We live streamed from the top of the Cliffs of Moher. If you want to see that event, go to our YouTube channel main page and you'll go back and you'll find one of our live streams from the top of the Cliffs of Moher. The wind was blowing, a gale, we had all kinds of things trying to hold the computer down so it wouldn't blow away, which was great. Andrew says they're delicious. Very excited for tomorrow. We had a tasting of the 3 of them in New York, and that was the first kind of broad public tasting of the 3 of them in their finished state at the different ABVs. These are, remember we were talking a couple of weeks ago about the ideal ABV for a whiskey, and the majority of you voted to say that you wanted the blender to decide what ABV the whiskies should end up at, not cask strength, not 40%, not 46, because those can't all be the right strength. We want to rely on the palates of the blenders and the distillers. This is the first chance. All these whiskies were decided on their ABV by Louise, and they range from 52 up to 56% ABV in the 3 whiskies. 52, 55, I think, and 56, as far as I remember, which is exciting. Mark says, I wish we could have got some 50 ml samples to go with them. Yeah, I wish we could have got a lot more whiskey too, but those are the challenges with these small releases that we'll do. Keep an eye on my fire there, it doesn't get too low down. Yeah, with the small batch releases, you're limited on what you can do. You know, I think for some releases in the future, we'll be able to do some different bottling options. We're still kind of, logistics are still an issue, and being able to fulfill many variations on one thing is both a bottling line issue, a logistical selling issue, and a shipping issue. So if we grow, which we hope to do, there's a chance, I think, that we'll get a little bit more creative and be able to get more creative. We've access to the Irish Malts bottling line now as well, so we can bottle whiskies on the Irish Malts bottling line, which is fantastic. So I think we're going to have some more opportunities to do things. So we're working way behind the scenes at those things. What else have we got to talk about and on the club? So that's our upcoming tasting. Very soon, hopefully within the next week, we'll be able to announce our next whiskey club bottling. And whether you like it or not, it's going to be a peated whiskey, and I'm going to take you on a peated journey so that we can all learn about peat and appreciate it, and actually get hold of what I believe is the greatest peated whiskey to come out of Ireland in the last 6 months, as if I'm some kind of expert. But yes, my journey into peat is continuing, which I'm enjoying. I've had some great peated whiskies over the past few weeks, and keep going back to some of the Steve League Dark Silky, which I really enjoy. The Waterford peated whiskies, the 2 peated whiskies from Waterford, dipping into the Octomore, the Scotch, believe it or not, a heavily peated 13.1 from Octomore. So my peated journey continues. and I want our next release to bring us into the world of peat. We're going to have a larger release, and even though we have a smaller peated community, I believe these whiskies will sell out in time. I'm not looking for an immediate sellout. I'd rather these were a journey. So we're going to pair this peated whiskey with a kind of a peated journey for us, where we understand, dive into every step of the peated whiskey making process and start to understand how to extract the flavors and not just dismiss it all as being smoke or ashtray or bonfire or any of those things, but we start together, and I'm part of that journey with you to kind of learn and understand it. And you know why? Do you know why it's going to be a good thing for us? Because some of you are going to walk away from that and say, you have opened up my mind to a peated whiskey, and therefore another 80% more Irish whiskies or Scotch whiskies, or the whiskey world is now open to me. And that's a great thing. So not everyone will take to peat, and nor do I want to forcefully bring you into that world. But this whiskey was so good, I knew we had to bottle it. And we're going to be the first in the world with it. So another first for the Stories and Sips Whiskey Club. Now, not everybody has to like every whiskey. Isn't that also the truth? You don't have to like non-peated. You don't have to like peated. You don't have to like sherry cask finish. You don't have to like port cask finish or bourbon age, whatever it is. You can have your own particular interests. So I would expect and probably recommend some of you who are absolutely not open or interested or just can't commit to every release that you do sit some out. Not every whiskey release will be for everybody. We'll probably do 8 to 10 releases over the next year. We did 4 in the first year, the Crack and the Three Cliffs of Moher whiskies. We'll do 8 to 10 in year 2. But you might not go for every single one. But every single one has to be special. It has to tell a story. It has to help us understand Irish whiskey. It has to be unique. It has to be, there can't be anything like it in the world. And we have to get some kind of exclusive on that whiskey. And that's how we'll select the whiskies. So that's exciting for me. And all whiskies will, the whiskies will vary in price points. You saw how expensive it is to release a whiskey in Ireland. When we add on shipping costs that we're eating for half your shipping costs to the US right now, it brings the bottles up, which means we can't get a bottle to you for less than $70. There's just no possible way to do that. It's just not just logistically impossible. So we're always going to be up there, right? Like from there on up, we'll have a few super premium whiskey releases, but I think our sweet spot will be in and around the 90 to 120 mark, which allows us access to whiskey that will be from 3 to 10 years of age, I would imagine. And then as we go higher than that, we'll go up in price. So I'm excited about what's coming. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's four whiskies that we're talking about at the moment with distilleries and brands, and there's actually a Putchine that we're talking about as well. So I know some of you have asked, get quite a few messages over the past 2 weeks about Putchine. Putchine being, you can call it the Irish moonshine. We'll call moonshine the American Putchine. See what I did there? For those of you tuning in, paying attention. We're talking about a Putchine, a unique Putchine for the Stories and Sips Whiskey Club, and that'll be a barley made Putchine from a small distillery in Ireland that we might be able to get to you early in the new year as well. So there's 4 or 5 interesting things that we're looking at the moment, and I'm very excited about. And we're putting in the work to make sure that these are the right ones and that they've got stories to tell, and maybe there'll be some promotions or giveaways or prizes or things we can do with the distilleries and brands in the early part of the new year that'll draw even more attention to Irish whiskey, and it'll get you maybe even more excited about the releases, and maybe we can do more for you. So that's the goal over the coming weeks. Cheryl told me to log on the fire, right? So log on the fire. I got some lovely pine oak, or it's not pine oak, pine hardwood. Kiln dried. All right. I'll take this off the screen there now. How's that? That's going to burn. There we go. How did that turn around now? Was I turning it? There we go. Stacey says the club's worth every penny. The whiskey and the Putchine releases alone. Wow. Yeah, so look, we're trialing this new model of getting the whiskies to you and the Putchines to you from Ireland. And your club subscriptions are underwriting the shipping costs in a big way, because every single one of those Cliffs of Moher bottles that went out to you, we paid 27 euros to FedEx ourselves, 27 euros ourselves per bottle, and you paid 25, I think. So it was 52 per bottle to get it to the United States, which is huge money, isn't it? Ridiculous. We don't see that coming down anytime in the future. We may be able to find ways around that in the future, but for the moment, if this model works, we'll keep it going, and we'll get it to a point where it's kind of maintainable and sustainable, that we can keep doing it. We can keep doing it. Okay, so we've also got a couple of other things to talk about with the club. The first is, if you didn't catch our Dead Rabbit replay, so our talk we did a couple of weeks ago with Jack McGarry, founder of the Dead Rabbit, Mark McLaughlin, director of Irish Whiskey at the Dead Rabbit in New York, very famous Irish bar, one of the world's most famous Irish bars outside of Ireland, maybe even within Ireland. They gave us a great time. They talked in depth about the building of the pub and the direction it's going in the future, and about their Irish whiskey program, their collaborations, their cask programs, our upcoming our upcoming event on February 6th in the Dead Rabbit in New York, which we are finalizing the details of at the moment, and hope to have something live for you before Christmas that you can put in your calendar to join us in the Dead Rabbit. If you haven't watched the replay, it's available on our website on storiesandships.com. Go up to the club section on our website and you'll find our old Meet the Maker. Every Meet the Maker we've done since October last year. So 10, 12 Meet the Makers, they're all in there, which is fantastic. The also in there, we've got a great interview. If you want to know how whiskies are put together by blenders, we have a great interview with Deirdre O'Carroll, the blender at the Midleton Distillery, who works under works with Dave McCabe and under Billy Lighton, the master blender, who's been there for 43, 44 years now at this stage. Great team. Deirdre's fantastic. She shared some great stories on how she built the Jameson single pot still blend, and the kind of the composition. It's not a blend, it's a pot still, but the composition of that pot still, the marrying, let's say, of all those whiskies together, and what her criteria is for selecting a whiskey, and how she noses and tastes. Really insightful. 25-minute interview, really well worth watching. You'll find that in our Stillhouse section on the website on storiesandships.com as well. So those are a couple of things that oftentimes these things slip by as emails go by, or you don't see an update online on social media. You might forget that we're adding content in there regularly. So to bring you a bit closer to the people behind Irish whiskey. If you are not part of our Stories and Sips Whiskey Club, we'd love to have you. It's very simple to join. Just go to storiesandships.com and you'll find a link to the club in the top right-hand corner, big join button. We'd love to have you. Just $20 a month. We'll bring you content every month. We'll bring you events every month. And we'll bring you lots of exclusive whiskey releases that you won't get anywhere else. And we will bring them to you as low as possible in price. And we will make sure that we do the hard work of tasting them for you before they ever get into the bottle, to make sure we're not poisoning you, right? This is the labor we go to over here. And that's it. That is it for our club news. What have we missed? Any questions? How's that fire for you now, Cheryl? Are you happy with that? You don't be needing many fires like that in Las Vegas, I'd say. Sipping away on this Christmas cake whiskey here and enjoying it. Cheryl says shipping is terrible. The prices. Yeah, shipping prices, they're terrible. It's the surcharge. I think the surcharge is 60 or 70% at the moment, or something ridiculous, of the shipping cost. It's mad. No Whiskey Bus updates, but I will say this. I think it'll be August. I don't think we get anything done before August. And there's a number of reasons why, things that are going on in the whiskey world and Anthony's business and mine. So I think it's going to be August, but I don't have any updates. I think it's going to be August. Mark's a fan of the fire. It's burning the back off me, Mark. When I take off my sweatshirt, I'll be cooked on one side of my body. Only outdoor fire pits in Vegas, says Cheryl. I'm trying to think if there was anything else that I missed that I didn't talk about. A list over there somewhere. No, I think we covered everything. Okay, Cheryl's happy with the fire. Good enough. Good enough for me. Good enough. What else are you sipping on? Anyone sipping on anything unusual or different at the moment? Or what are you excited about in the world of Irish whiskey? Is there anything going on at the moment that you're paying particular attention to? Distilleries, brands, people? Anything new turned up on your shelves lately? Anything surprised you? We'd love to know. Jim asks if I'm drying oranges for old fashions. What makes you think those aren't the oranges that came out of the old fashions we already drank? This is our sustainable decorating for Christmas, Jim. Very sustainable. No plastic. Cheryl wants to know more about the Christmas cake whiskey. I don't know a whole lot about it because the official tasting is Tuesday night. From Redbreast, from the Barrel Club. Christmas cake, 58% ABV, single pot still. We don't know anything about the age. We just know that a component of it was aged in cream sherry casks. Cream sherry is a style of sherry that was popular in the 20th century, predominantly low cost, can be high cost, predominantly very low. Cream sherry, sweet sherry, blend of sherries, Oloroso, PX blended together. And that's what we've got. A component of this, the way they've phrased it is quite clever, cream sherry cask inclusion. So there was a number of casks that contained this combination of sherries, and they have a slightly different, they go through kind of the same kind of oxidative aging process as like an Oloroso. So it's a different style, sweeter cream sherry it's known as. And there used to be, I think the name comes from back in the day, there was a famous sherry called, well, there was a famous style of sherry called Bristol Milk. And somebody said, I think some famous person said, if this be milk, then I claim some newer whiskey. Or if sherry be milk, then this new style that had come to the United Kingdom, I claim this to be the cream or something. It became known as Bristol Cream. And it is quite creamy. There's no dairy involvement otherwise, but it's funny that it says cream because it's quite a creamy mouthfeel, as are most pot still whiskies. They have kind of a creamy pot still feel. Eric Way, thank you so much for buying me a drink there. I appreciate that. And anything I can do to help you at any time, Eric, you're an absolute gent. Thank you so much. No need to buy me anything, anytime, folks. But that's a very generous thing. And I'll have a small whiskey. I'll have a small whiskey on you, Eric, and I'll toast you. Thank you, sir. Kieran tried Kilo and Carry Out Killarney Pinot Noir for the first time last night. Absolutely fantastic. Very good. And Austin is drinking Tipperary Homegrown Rioja. There's an interesting one. Can't wait to see what they do next. It's hard to keep up now, I'll tell you. It's hard to keep up with what's going on in the world of Irish whiskey. Steve is drinking, he's going to pour a sample of Dunville's 21-year-old Palo Cortado. Jeff is sipping on 2 stacks Polaris 1.2. You got a nice range of whiskies there. Jeff sipping on some Black Pits, cask strength. Oh, I must try that. I need to get a bottle of that. So that's 2 bottles now that are on my list. Bushmills 12-year-old and Black Pits, which is Teeling's peated single malt, made entirely in Teeling. Amazing, in Dublin. And they have a cask strength version. So I'm looking forward to trying that. Stacey's excited for 2 stacks Christie's bar release. Jeff, yeah, very good. There's so much out there. It's there's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot coming in the coming first half of 2023. Big releases. Stay tuned. Big releases. You're going to get some new distilleries releasing product for the first time, including Boan Distillery. They're going to be releasing their own whiskey for the first time. So lots coming. Lots coming. Jeff says, get your peat on. Well, I have loads of peat beside the fire here. I could throw that on the fire anytime. I've got lots of peated whiskies that I'd like to get my peat on as well. There was an interesting takeaway from the tasting we did with Blackwater Distillery, Dirt Grain Whiskey, 2 weeks ago. Everything was 2 weeks ago. Oh, by the way, I want to play a fun video from Ohio and the Cleveland Browns Stadium. You can scream about how often they lose all you want, but it's a fun video. Before I do that, the Dirt Grain Whiskey tasting we did at Blackwater, Peter Mulryan. It's on their Facebook page. It's on their YouTube channel. Go check it out. Blackwater Distillery's YouTube. Dirt Grain Whiskey, we helped them launch it. Some of you in the audience got some of those tasting kits sent to you, which was great. One of their releases that included the peated whiskey component, can't remember which number, one of you will know. It's the first Irish whiskey made entirely with Irish grain, Irish peat that was peated in Ireland, the grain that was peated in Ireland, and then turned into an Irish whiskey. The closest to that up to that point was Waterford's peated whiskey release, which was 100% Irish grain, 100% Irish peat, but the barley was peated in Scotland because there was no facility big enough to do Waterford's peat in Ireland. Blackwater were able to use craft malt. Is it craft malts? They have a very small little kiln. They were able to do a small batch of peat for Peter Mulryan, of peated barley, peated malt. Whereas Waterford had to go to Scotland to send their grain and the peat to Scotland to have it peated in their fires, I think in Glenesk, I think, and then sent back to Ireland. Not the most climate-friendly approach to it, but that was an interesting takeaway that I wanted to remind you of. Number 93, says Stacey. Very good. Ray Master 74821 wants to know, what do I think of the new Teeling releases compared to the old Cooley releases under the name Teeling? It's a great question, and boy, it's very hard. They have so many releases. I think there's 400 releases have come out of Teeling since they've opened the distillery. Can you believe? So they are the kings of cask finishes. They have done unbelievable cask finishes on their ex-Cooley stock, their ex-Bushmill stock, which they also own, and now, of course, they've got their own stuff. So it's tough to compare. Their new stuff obviously is so young. New pot stills, new malt, they're young. I think their Black Pits is the winner of what's come out of the distillery that they're making completely so far. And the others, I think, have still to catch up. There was one pot still, however, that was aged, a very small release that went to the Celtic Whisky Shop of Teeling owned distilled single pot still aged in chestnut casks, finished in chestnut casks, which was a winner. Love chestnut casks. That was the best pot still I've tasted out of Teeling. That was a Celtic Whisky Shop release, and it won either a gold or the ultimate award in the category. Oh, it did. It won for, I think, best small batch pot still, I think, or small cask, small batch or single cask release or something. I have to go back and look. It was the Teeling's pot still finished in chestnut casks. Wonderful whiskey. That and the Black Pits are the two best ones. Now, hard to compare them to a 34-year-old ex-Bushmills malt or a 24-year-old ex-Cooley malt, very, very different. I think they all have their merits. I've said to them, I can't keep up with all of your releases, your finishing programs that you do in your Cooley stock. But they're all experiments, aren't they? They're all learning, and they're all something different, something unique. And to have that age of stock, how lucky are they? Johnny's onto 2 stacks apricot brandy. Okay, let me play you a video. So we took Kevin O'Gorman, master distiller from the Midleton Distillery, to Cleveland last week, and to help us taste the Silent Distillery Chapter 3 and our 9 other great whiskies that we had over 2 nights. We raised $70,000 for charity. Incredible event. We're going to beat $100,000 next year with your help and more events that we're going to put on. But we decided that when Kevin was going to be in Ohio, we started planning a few months ago, we wanted to put on the absolute red carpet of a welcome for Kevin. And everywhere we went, we wanted Kevin to be welcomed and to be received to Ohio. It's not every day that Ohio gets the Midleton Master Distiller. And it was Kevin's first ever time visiting the United States as Master Distiller. He was appointed in 2020 and he hadn't been there since the COVID and what have you. And so when he came to Cleveland, we had a few really special events lined up, including a VIP behind the scenes visit to the Cleveland Cavaliers down in the field house, in Rocket Mortgage Field House. And we took him to the Cleveland Browns Stadium where we got a private tour. He got his own jersey in the Cleveland Browns locker room, in their home locker room. He got his own number 22. Well, it's somebody else's number. But he got his jersey, player-issued jersey, player-issued equipment, and he got to go out on a NFL field for the first time in his life, and he was blown away by the experience. So I have a lovely video here before Kevin really knows what's going on. I'm just going to play it for you. Yeah, run on. Off you go. Here he comes.
Big scoreboard.
Look.
Look at the scoreboard. Oh, look at that.
really great fun. Great fun. And we went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But that moment when Kevin sees his name in lights in the Cleveland Browns Stadium was really special. And I have some great pictures and great videos of that moment with him running on the field. He said, "Do they walk on?" I said, "They do not. They run. Sometimes they run through you." I said, "Go on, run out there." And he did. And it was great to see it. And he was so appreciative of the visit to Ohio. And I think he gave us so much as well, didn't he? And in helping us raise the money. And so a great 2 days we had in Cleveland. That's awesome, says Jeff. Yeah, it was great. It really was fun. And the weather was good to us. It was cold, but it wasn't wet. It wasn't snowing. We weren't rained off. The field was open, and also we were able to plan our event. We weren't snowed under or under lockdowns, as you can have oftentimes when nobody's going to get to your premises when there's 3 feet of snow in Cleveland. But I thought that was a nice little touch. So next time you go to the Midleton Distillery, you'll see everybody walking around in Cleveland Browns gear, Cavs gear, because Kevin had a big bag full of merch to take home that was thrown at him, given to him. So expect to see lots of Ohio sports references in the Midleton Distillery next time you visit. So thank you all for those of you who attended. It was really great. I think that's it, folks. That is you're up to date on what's happening with the world of Irish whiskey. Some couple of great releases there from West Cork, Dunvilles, this week. And also we've got our great tasting tomorrow night with Louise McGuan, founder of JJ Corrie Irish Whiskey, who's going to taste these 3 whiskies with us, the 3 Cliffs of Moher whiskies, Oloroso, Pot Still, Palo Cortado malt, and Pedro Jimenez malt. And we're going to taste those wonderful whiskies that were aged on top of the Cliffs of Moher. Registration is now open. Go to storiesandsIps.com. You'll find it under the Club Whiskies section, under our Whiskey Club link on the website. And you'll be able to register there for the private Zoom tomorrow night at 7 o'clock Eastern. If you're not able to join us, we'll be recording it. So it'll be available for you as a recording within 24 hours. So thank you, everybody. Thanks for all of your support, as always. All I ask is that you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Click the subscribe button above the channel and click on the like button if you enjoyed this video, and more people will see it. If you want to throw a comment underneath the main video, you can do that as well once we're finished. But anything you can do to share the word about Irish whiskey, I think benefits all of us, because we'll have more stories to tell, more distilleries to talk about, more brands to share, and more whiskey to drink together, which is really as good as we can expect. So from a very, very cold Ireland, I hope to see you all tomorrow night at 7 o'clock Eastern. Spread the word with your club friends, and I will see you all then. All right. Thanks very much, everybody. Sláinte, and have a great night.